Love is often measured by what we give. The more we give, the more we believe we love. But what happens when love asks you to give up the one thing you value the most? What if your greatest gift becomes your greatest loss? This is the story of two ordinary people with very little money, but with hearts full of love. A story where love does not shout, does not beg, and does not explain itself. This is the gift of the Magi, a story that will make you rethink what true love really means. $1.87. That was all the money she had. She had saved it little by little. 1 cent, then another, each time she bought meat or food. Della counted the money once. Then she counted it again, 3 times in total. $1.87. And tomorrow was Christmas. There was nothing else she could do, so Della lay down on the bed and began to cry. As Della slowly became quiet, we can take a look at the home. They lived in furnished rooms that cost $8 a week. There was not much more to say about the place. Down in the hallway, there was a letterbox. It was too small to hold any letter. There was also an electric bell, but it did not make any sound. Beside the door there was a small name card. On it was written, Mr. James Dillingham Young. When the name was first put there, James Dillingham Young earned $30 a week. Now he earned only $20 a week. The name looked too long and too grand. It almost felt like it should be shorter, like Mr. James D. Young. But when he came into the small rooms, his name became very short. His wife put her arms around him warmly and called him Jim. You have already met her. Her name is Della. Della stopped crying and cleaned her face. She stood by the window and looked outside without interest. Tomorrow was Christmas Day, and she had only $1.87 to buy a gift for Jim. She had saved as much money as she could for many months, and this was all she had. $20 a week was not much. Everything cost more than she expected. It always happened that way. Only $1.87 to buy a gift for Jim, her Jim. She had spent many happy hours thinking about a gift for him. Something nice, something good enough, something that would feel almost worthy of belonging to Jim. There was a mirror between the two windows of the room. It was the kind of mirror you often see in cheap furnished rooms. The mirror was very narrow. You could see only a small part of yourself at a time. But if someone was very thin and moved quickly, they could see themselves better. Della was quite thin, and she had learned how to do this well. Suddenly, she turned away from the window and stood in front of the mirror. Her eyes were shining, but her face had lost its color. Quickly, she let her hair down and allowed it to fall to its full length. Jim and Della were very proud of 2 things they owned. One was Jim's gold watch. It had once belonged to his father, and before that, it had belonged to his grandfather. The other thing they were proud of was Della's hair. If a queen had lived near them, Della would have washed and dried her hair where the queen could see it. She knew her hair was more beautiful than any jewels or gifts a queen might own. If a king had lived in the same house with all his great riches, Jim would have taken out his watch every time they met. Jim knew that no king owned anything more valuable than his watch. Now Della's beautiful hair fell around her shoulders. It shone like a stream of brown water flowing down. It reached below her knees and almost became a dress for her. Then she quickly and nervously put her hair back up. For a moment, she stopped and stood still. A tear or two slowly ran down her face. She put on her old brown coat. She put on her old brown hat. There was still a bright look in her eyes. Then she quickly went out the door and walked down to the street. She stopped in front of a shop. The sign on the door said, Mrs. Sofroni, hair goods of all kinds. Della ran up to the second floor and stopped to catch her breath. Mrs. Sofroni looked at her. She was large, very pale, and had cold eyes. Will you buy my hair? Della asked. I buy hair, said Mrs. Sofroni. Take off your hat and let me see it. Down fell the brown hair like a flowing waterfall. $20, said Mrs. Sofroni, lifting the hair to feel its weight. Give it to me quickly, said Della. And then the next 2 hours passed very fast. She went from one shop to another shop, searching for a gift for Jim. At last, she found it. It felt as if the gift had been made only for Jim, and for no one else. There was nothing like it in any other shop. She had searched every shop in the city. It was a gold watch chain. The design was very simple. Its value was not in decoration, but in the pure and rich gold. Because it was plain and simple, you could tell it was valuable. All truly good things are like this. It was good enough for the watch. The moment she saw it, she knew Jim must have it. The chain was like Jim. Quiet and valuable. Both Jim and the chain had quiet strength and worth. She paid $21 for it. Then she hurried home, holding the chain and 87 cents. With this chain on his watch, Jim could check the time anywhere he went. The watch itself was very fine, but it had never had a proper chain before. Sometimes, Jim took out his watch and looked at it quietly, only when no one else could see him. When Della reached home, her mind became a little calm. She began to think more clearly. She tried to hide the sad signs of what she had done. Love and generous giving, when they come together, can leave deep marks, and it is never easy to hide those marks, dear friends. Never easy. After 40 minutes, her head looked a little better. With her short hair, she looked very much like a young schoolboy. She stood in front of the mirror and looked at herself for a long time. If Jim doesn't get very angry, she said to herself, before he looks at me again, he may say I look like a girl who sings and dances for money. But what could I do? She whispered. What could I do with only $1.87? At 7 o'clock, Jim's dinner was ready. Jim was never late. Della sat near the door where he always came in. She held the watch chain in her hand. Then she heard his footsteps in the hallway. For a moment, her face lost its color. Della often said small, quiet prayers about simple things in life. And now she whispered, Please God, let him think I am still pretty. The door opened, and Jim came inside. He looked very thin. He was not smiling. Poor Jim. He was only 22 years old, and he already had a family to care for. He needed a new coat, and he had nothing to keep his hands warm from the cold. Jim stopped just inside the door. He was very quiet, like a hunting dog when it is close to a bird. He looked at Della in a strange way. There was something in his eyes that she could not understand. That look filled her with fear. It was not anger. It was not surprise. It was not anything she expected. He simply stood there, looking at her with that strange expression on his face. Della went close to him. Jim, dear, she cried, please don't look at me like that. I cut my hair and sold it. I couldn't live through Christmas without giving you a gift. My hair will grow again. You won't mind, will you? It grows very fast. It's Christmas, Jim. Let's be happy. You don't know what a beautiful gift I bought for you. You cut off your hair? Jim asked slowly. He seemed to struggle to understand what had happened. It was as if he was not yet sure that he truly understood it. I cut it off and sold it, said Della. Don't you like me now? I am still me, Jim. I am the same person even without my hair. Jim looked slowly around the room. Are you saying your hair is really gone? He asked. You don't need to look for it, said Della. It's sold and gone. Tonight is Christmas Eve, Jim. Please be kind to me, because I sold it for you. Maybe someone could count the hairs on my head, she said softly. But no one could ever count how much I love you. Shall we have dinner now, Jim? Jim put his arms around his Della. For a few moments, let us look away from them. $8 a week, or $1,000,000 a year. How different are they, really? Someone may try to answer this, but the answer will be wrong. The Magi brought valuable gifts, but the most important gift was not one of them. The meaning of this will become clear very soon. Jim reached inside his coat and took out a small package wrapped in paper. He placed it on the table. I want you to understand me, Della, he said softly. Nothing like cutting your hair could ever make me love you less. But if you open that gift, you will understand how I felt when I came home. Her white fingers quickly pulled off the paper. First, she cried out in joy, and then her joy slowly turned into tears. Because inside the package were the combs. The combs Della had seen in a shop window and loved for a long time. They were beautiful combs, decorated with jewels, made for her beautiful hair. She knew they were too expensive for her to ever buy. She had looked at them many times, without any hope of owning them. And now they were hers. But her hair was gone. But she held the combs close to her heart. After a moment, she looked up at Jim and said softly, My hair grows very fast, Jim. Then she suddenly jumped up and cried, Oh, oh! Jim had not yet seen his beautiful gift. She held it out to him in her open hand. The gold chain shone softly, as if it carried her own warmth and loving spirit. Isn't it perfect, Jim? She said. I searched the whole town to find it. Now you will look at your watch 100 times every day. Give me your watch, Jim. I want to see how they look together. Jim sat down and smiled. Della, he said softly, let's put our Christmas gifts away for now. They are too precious to use yet. I sold my watch to get the money to buy the combs. And now, he said gently, I think we should have our dinner. The Magi, as you know, were wise men. They were very wise men who brought gifts to the newborn Christ. They were the first to give Christmas gifts. Because they were wise, their gifts were also wise. Now I have told you the story of two people who were not wise. Each of them sold the most valuable thing they owned to buy a gift for the other. And now let me say one last thing. Of all the people who give gifts, these two were the wisest. Of all who give and receive gifts, people like them are the wisest of all. Everywhere, they are the truly wise ones. They are the Magi. Love does not always show itself in grand words or big moments. Sometimes it shows itself in quiet sacrifice. Jim and Della gave up the most valuable things they owned, not to gain something, but to give love. Perhaps that is what true wisdom is. If this story touched you, you may share your thoughts if you wish. In the next story, we will see love face silence in a very different way.